Hi, I'm John Grable. I'm the foreman for the underground crew at Meeker Co-op.
I'm Logan Josephson. I am the overhead foreman at Meeker Cooperative.
Brandon Skulberg, journeyman lineman at Meeker Cooperative.
I'm Nate Glemsdahl. I am a journeyman lineman at Meeker Cooperative.
We're going to talk about some of the experiences they had recently. So there were local co-ops there that were reaching out for help. Can you describe kind of what the process is when Meeker Co-op got that, the notification that they need help? And did you guys volunteer? How was it decided who was going to be able to go?
We have a statewide organization called MREA, Minnesota Rural Electric Association. They kind of represent all the Minnesota co-ops. So what happens is South Carolina or Florida's statewide contacts our statewide, which then contacts our operations managers. And our operations managers usually decide, if they can even let guys go. Maybe we're too busy back here that we can't even leave. They kind of decide that way first, and then they ask for volunteers, which all 8 of us linemen would have went. Yep. We just kind of went with who went on the last storms and kind of picked that way. So,
other guys had went on previous storms, so 4 of us hadn't been on anything for a while, so we kind of got the opportunity to go on this one.
So when you guys found out, the 4 of you, how much notice did you guys have? Did you get home? Did you have a chance to pack a bag, let your families know, that kind of thing?
Yeah, they let us know. It was Tuesday morning, mid-morning, I would say, and then we started to pack the trucks up. We let our families know, and then left Wednesday morning early. So that night we were able to stay with family and say our goodbyes before we were heading out.
So you mentioned, bucket trucks aren't really made for cross-country and comfortable travel, and then you got the windy roads and dealing with. Was it the kind of thing where you're driving, you got to get out of the car and try to help move a tree so you can keep going where you need to go, or were people clearing the roads ahead of you guys? What was that like?
I'd say it was pretty good. By the time we got down to South Carolina, it had already been a week since it passed, so they had the roads cleared, but you could tell where the trees were down. Yeah. If we would have been there a week earlier, it would have been impossible to get anywhere.
Yeah. At Blue Ridge, it had already been a week, so it wasn't as big of an issue with the fuel and places being open. Florida was completely different. There was all the gas stations were closed right away, and it was basically we were right at the start of it all, so it's completely different.
So describe when you guys first arrived, maybe in South Carolina, and maybe it was different in Florida. Was it, pretty organized, disorganized? Did you guys kind of have an idea where you were going, what you're doing? I just can imagine all these people to come together.
It was very organized at Blue Ridge. We had a guy that was waiting to go with us. They kind of laid out what we were going to be going and looking at, and then since they had power starting to come up, they had maps to show us what lines we were working on, where they fed. They did clearance codes for us energizing anything. So if we were working on a line, they called it in. If we were energizing a line, they called it in. And then we were able to look, and all of us would sit down and be able to look at exactly what we were working on. So it was nice. Yeah. It was very well organized.
How was it different working there? You mentioned a lot of the tools and technology. A lot of that's pretty familiar, pretty much the same. But how was it different working? Obviously Meeker County, pretty flat farmland, relatively straight roads. Was the terrain different? Was there different, animals, all kinds of stuff that you had to deal with when you were there compared to what you're used to on the day-to-day?
Yeah, the terrain's definitely different in South Carolina. We were in the Blue Ridge Mountains, and it's
We don't have a lot of mountains around here.
no, there's no straight power lines there either.
Yep.
These wind all over, and it's hard to get trucks to a lot of them.
I think like when it comes down to it, the fixing of the lines was the same. It's just the terrain. I mean, in South Carolina, there wasn't a straight road. Everything was hilly. Trying to get trucks and stuff was hard. We don't run into that around here. Everything's right on the road. So, I mean, just the terrain was a lot different in South Carolina. A lot of valleys and stuff. Florida, it was pretty straight and more urban areas. So, yep, putting up lines, it's the same. It's just a little different spots.
And then, the critters, there's a lot of spiders that we're not used to, and
Like a lot of spiders.
Like a lot of
And big, big banana spiders, and
boy.
we had a few different little situations with the spiders, and you couldn't walk out like you take for granted here if a power line is down, or if a farmer hits something or a tree or something, you could just walk into it. Well, down there, if you don't walk with a stick in front of you, knocking the cobwebs down, a spider lands on you, and they're that thick. So it was like you didn't just walk through a woods.
Yeah, South Carolina, you really got to watch out when you're walking. Yeah, I literally walked into about a 6-foot web with a spider right in the middle and smacked me right in the face. And yeah, the webs, they'll stick to everything. You drive through with a truck and it gets stuck on the windshield, and yeah, it's terrible with the spiders out there.
The snakes are bad in Florida, really bad. So it was like, and you had to walk through stuff that was like over your head grass sometimes. And we're sitting there walking into this grass, and you don't know, one of the guys that was in our group, not Stearns and Meeker group, but in another group, got bit by a snake when we were there.
Really?
And after
snake?
that, a big snake. So we were like, he ended up going to the emergency room and getting anti-venom for it.
Jeez.
And,
So not a garter
stuff.
snake.
No, not your normal little snake. So
Meeker County snake.
yeah, it was. So that's in the back of your head the whole time. Are you going to get bit by a big snake, or
So we were waiting to cross a bridge. We weren't sure if we could cross a bridge, and I was walking down in the river bottom, and I was standing down looking at some rocks, and this snake came right up at me, kind of standing up, and I turned around and ran like a little girl and screamed, and I wasn't, because they had been talking about all these snakes and how dangerous they are down there, and so it wasn't. No, I'm not a snake person to begin with. So, and he was big and long.
Yeah, your eyes got to be everywhere.
Yeah.
And the locals said you can't lay down in the grass because there's chiggers in the grass. You'll get chiggers all over you.
Oh boy.
And so you couldn't sit down in the grass to sit down. And you can't go in any water, no fresh water. They said there's alligators or snakes in every ounce of fresh water that's there. So
Oh man.
You guys were wrapping up in South Carolina, about to head back, and you guys got a call that Florida was then the next one because of Hurricane Milton. I think happened about a week or two after Helene did. So, what was finding that out? Was that a no-brainer? Was there a debate there? Were you guys still in South Carolina?
we were actually in North Carolina, but we were still in the Blue Ridge Mountains, and we just kind of came together as a group, said, are you guys okay with going to Florida if we go?
Yep.
If they want us to go. And everyone agreed to, they were all about doing it. So then they had us, we kind of staged there for about an hour waiting to find out if we were going to go or not. And then they said, you're going. And we went to Jacksonville, Florida, and kind of held up because the hurricane hadn't hit yet. I was a little nervous that night because you don't know if it's going to go a little farther north or what's going to happen, and you know that it's serious and what's coming in. So it was kind of a little bit uneasy that night, not knowing exactly what was going to happen. And we actually said a little prayer, Logan and I did, before we went, that night, kind of before we were going into all this stuff, because
it's still active.
it was Yeah, it was active, and we're sitting there, and you're kind of staged before it, and you don't know what's going to happen.
Right.
So, and it was kind of a little bit of a different feeling going into it that way.
So when we're talking about these power outages, like I said, over 7 million between the two locations. What is the main issue? Is it down lines, overhead lines that are down? Is it substations that are damaged? Is it meters at homes? Is it kind of all of the above?
I would say it's more down lines and trees that were down. Just a lot of trees down through lines and stuff. We would go on a tap, and there would be, like, say, 10 different spans of wire that were down on the same tap.
Okay.
So it'd be like whatever's feeding your house. If there was 10 poles in between the main power line and your house that you have, all those spans were on the ground.
Wow.
Or in between what was feeding your neighbors, they were all on the ground. So that's kind of what South Carolina was like. It was a lot of trees and lines.
What was the typical work day like? You guys would, first of all, where did you stay? Did you guys have to bring tents? Were there hotels? Like, where were you staying? And when did you start the day? When did you end the day? That kind of thing.
Blue Ridge, there was tents set up for guys to stay in.
Yep.
All the meals, material, were all staged there.
Okay, good.
At the co-op, they have a huge facility there.
It was storm services at Blue Ridge Cooperative, and I can't remember, I think it's Kelly Services that was in Florida, and each one of them had a mess hall, the buffet line. You come through once, you know, if there's extras, you can go back for more. And you know, some people actually just come up, get their plate, and just go eat, go right to sleep. So, yeah, those kind of companies that come in and help set up for lodging, parking, and food, they've got it all figured out.
Yeah, the whole time we were there, we worked together. The 4 Meeker guys and the 2 Stearns guys, we stayed as a group throughout the South Carolina and Florida. When we got there, they had material for us to rebuild what was destroyed. So we just would load up in the morning with whatever we were going to rebuild, and go like that for the rest of the day. So
you get your orders in the morning. We kind of had a representative from the co-op that stayed with us throughout the whole stay there.
Oh, good. Okay.
And then
So you knew where to go.
we would know where to go, and they'd kind of lay out the orders, and we'd do the work.
days started at about 5 in the morning, and we would be done at 9 or 10 o'clock at night.
Wow.
Oh boy, that's a long haul.
Every day.
Did you guys get a chance to interact with many people, locals there that showed some appreciation, or were those people evacuated? Did you get to talk to any of them, really?
South Carolina, there was quite a few people that would wave at you or stop their vehicle on the road, roll their window down, and say thank you for coming and helping and putting the power on.
Sweet.
I mean, we saw a lot of that.
Yeah.
I was walking out a tap, and I had a grandma come up to me, and she started crying and said, "It's been 12 days since I had power. Are you guys going to turn the power on?"
Yeah.
And we turned it. I said, "Yeah, we're hoping to have it on in the next hour." But that was kind of, there's quite a few people that were out for a long time.
Did you guys have a pretty good feeling by the time you were leaving that, first of all, I guess, how did you know when you were going to leave? Do you know, was there a deadline? We're just going to stay this long and then we're going to leave? Did you kind of stay until so many people got power back? How was that kind of decided?
You could see how many customers were being put on every day.
Okay.
So we would kind of watch, even in South Carolina, we could see their system and say they have 70,000 people. We could see that it was down to there's 10,000 people still out of power. Mm-hmm. So we knew we were getting closer every day.
You can have a goal, you kind of have something to see.
Yeah, but basically it was, we were going to stay till everyone had power again.
Wow.
And that's kind of how you do it.
Yeah, I mean, when we left, it was pretty much everyone was back on for what they could get back on. Mm-hmm. Obviously, they'll deal with those damages for years, I would imagine. I mean, there's leaning poles to...
Yeah.
But our goal is, when we show up, is get the power on.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that will need to be fixed.
Anything you guys kind of want to add about your experience there, or, positive, negatives, just things you observed while you were there?
This is an awesome group of guys that worked really hard down there, and yeah, it was a good experience.
We were ready to come home, yep. When we knew everything was pretty much back on, then it was, we had been away for almost 2 weeks, and we knew we had a long drive home, so everybody was ready to get home and see their families.
I was ready to come home. It felt good. Felt good to head home.
When we were down there, you think about your family a lot. Makes you realize some things you take for granted. I couldn't wait to see my family again and give them a hug. Yeah, be home.
Yeah, the homesickness for me doesn't really kick in until you're told you can go home. It's like, you did your job. All right, I'm ready to go home.
Jane from our office, who's normally on the show, she has one of her best friends lives in South Carolina, really close to where you guys were, and she wanted to pass along this message, and I quote, "Tell the linemen thank you. We've experienced wild extremes of tragedy and beauty here. Your linemen's willingness to leave their homes and families to help strangers is heartwarming proof of the good in people that erases differences. Thank you for adding to the beauty." Thank you for your families for sacrificing that time as well, because it means a lot. As a co-op, we're very, very proud that they were able to go, that we were able to help serve, other co-ops and other people in the country, stuff like that. So this is, like I said, cooperative principles, cooperatives helping cooperatives.